Welcome to the Murder Mukbang Show. I'm Ashley.
And I'm Brittany.
And today we're going to be talking to you about a child murder. So if you don't like those kinds of things or you find it too disturbing and too gruesome, please don't listen or watch because it's going to get kind of gory. But we're going to be eating pretzels and pizza because this murder involves a mall, and so we kind of wanted to throw in a little bit of mall food, and so some of the things that you get there are pretzels and pizza. So, are we ready to get started?
Yes, and just to warn you guys, this case is really sad.
It was hard for both me and Brittany to do the research on it. Me, because I have children, and it's difficult anytime a child's life is taken too soon, especially in such a brutal manner. So, and it's fucked up.
All right, so we're going to start eating a little bit first.
Yeah.
Before we start talking about this.
So we have pretzels and pizza. I made the pizza, homemade. We have some mustard, spicy brown mustard, and some cheese sauce that I also made at homemade. So hopefully it's good. I've actually never done this before, so.
It looks like it's going to be good.
I hope so. Okay.
All right, so I've known about this case for a while. This is something I've researched before, but it's been quite a long time before I've read anything about it or done any kind of research. So, like Ashley said, this case was really difficult for both of us to kind of read about every day. I think when you read about something so much and you put so much energy into it, I really feel like it does drain you if it's a case like this.
Absolutely.
It's sad. It's a really sad case.
Yeah, I've had to take several breaks from it just because it was so difficult. And actually also today, just to kind of lighten the mood a little bit, what we're going to do is we're going to take a break probably about halfway through like we did in last week's video, and we're going to talk about our favorite episodes of The Office, just to lighten it up. If you guys have never seen The Office, fuck you. No, I'm just kidding.
What are you doing with your life?
But we're going to need to take a break because it is very hard and very dark, and it's difficult to talk about. So.
All right, so we're going to start this story on February 12th, 1993. James Bulger, who was born on March 16th, which is tomorrow, was abducted, tortured, and murdered by two 10-year-old boys that lived in the area. The two murderers' names are John Venables and Robert Thompson. They were both 10 years old, very close in age, and they liked to skip school a lot. They were friends, they went to school together, and they were very mischievous, and they were kind of bad kids. Mm-hmm. They were known to their teachers to cause problems and cause trouble, and they skipped school a lot. So on that day of February 12th, they had skipped school and they were hanging out at New Strand Mall in Bootle. And they had been there all day. They were on surveillance cameras stealing. They had stole candy. They had stole toys.
Like a troll doll?
Yeah. They had stole some blue paint. All of these things we will talk about later because some of them were left at the actual murder scene. So as these boys were in this mall hanging out, causing problems, playing pranks on people, they started watching children, watching young boys. They were picking a target. You can see there's video surveillance footage of them walking around just observing.
Looking at kids.
Yeah.
Watching them. Creepy.
Yeah, so they found little James outside of the butcher shop in the mall, which I have never heard of a butcher shop being inside of a mall before. His mother, Denise, was inside the butcher shop. James was on the outside. At 3:40 was the last time that she saw her son, standing right outside the door of the shop, waiting for her. At 3:42, there is surveillance footage of John and Robert luring little James, taking him by the hand, and leading him out of the mall.
I found an article where it said that it took 1 minute and 39 seconds for them, when the camera leaving the mall, it took 1 minute and 39 seconds. That is not a lot of time.
No.
And it just shows how fast something bad can happen.
Yeah. So, they took little James. Can I have a napkin?
I'm gonna have to get up.
So, once James was taken out of the mall, the first place that they went was about a quarter mile away. They took him to the Leeds and Liverpool Canal. Like I said, it was a quarter mile away from the mall, which is a long way for a toddler, a 2-year-old, to walk. He had little legs. I mean, I couldn't imagine having to walk even a quarter of a mile. So
when
they
you're
got
2 years old.
When you're 2 years old. So they got to this canal. They went up to the edge of the canal, and James was looking over into the canal, and the boys were hoping that he was going to fall in. He did not fall in. They talked about pushing him in, but they decided instead to pick him up and throw him to the ground. This is where James sustained his first injury. He got a pretty large gash on his head. It was bleeding. He was crying. The boys got scared because he was going into hysterics, and they ran. They left him there. They left him, a 2-year-old, wandering around a canal where he could have easily fallen in and drowned, and they didn't care.
Just shows you what kind of psychopaths they were.
So they came back a couple minutes later, and James, being the sweet little innocent baby that he was, ran back up to them. And like, they didn't hurt him, or he trusted them so much, and he didn't know them, and he was probably so scared, and all he probably wanted was just to see his mom. And
he didn't know.
he didn't.
Dad.
It is sad. So after they left the canal, they proceeded to walk another 2.5 miles with this toddler through Liverpool.
2.5 miles.
2.5 miles. 2.5 miles is a lot for me to walk. Let alone,
I don't walk that.
let alone a baby that is being forced to walk. They weren't carrying him. He was being forced to walk through the town, crying and bleeding. James and the boys were seen by 38 people on this little walk through Liverpool, and not one person stopped and intervened with them.
Well, 2 people did.
Well, that was at the very end.
Yeah.
So towards the end of their walk, 2 people did stop them outside of a store and asked, "What's going on? Why is he crying? Do you know him?" The boys lied and said that they found him, that he was lost, and that they were taking him to the police station. Now, the women that found them questioned this because they knew that they had found this little toddler at the New Strand Mall, and there's a police station literally right around the corner from where they were at. So they were concerned about this, wondering why you went all this way when there was a police station right around the corner. The boys got out of this again by lying and telling them that they went to this police station because this is where they were directed to go by another person that they asked, which was not true because nobody else stopped them. So the women let them go. They just, okay, hopefully you guys make it to the police station all right. You know, you're 2 10-year-olds and a 2-year-old, but we're going to trust the fact that you are going to make it to the police station.
I have a huge issue with this. Big time. And I'm a bit torn, but if I was approached, or if I approached 2 kids and said, "What's going on?" and they told me they were going to the police station because this little boy was lost, you better bet your ass that I would be taking that little boy to the police station.
Yep.
And
I feel like they hold some of that guilt.
I think so too. And I'm sure they do feel like shit. I'm sure that they absolutely do. It's just, I know that if that was me, I would feel like the biggest asshole in the entire world.
Me too. So, after the boys leave these 2 women, they walk past the police station in Walton and take James up this really steep hill to the Anfield railway station. this is going to be the last place where James is alive. They walk to the middle of the rail station, into the middle of a track. Robert throws the blue modeling paint that they stole from the mall in James's face, getting it in his eye. He starts crying, and the boys push him down to the ground. They start kicking him and stomping on him and throwing bricks and stones at him. And then they pick up a 22-pound iron bar and proceed to beat him in the head repeatedly until he dies. Now, there's evidence that was found at the crime scene. James had an injury to his mouth. It is suspected that the batteries that they stole from the mall were shoved into his mouth after they were shoved into his rectum. And it's not said anywhere in any kind of articles whether this was done before or after he died. A lot of the information on this case is hidden, and it's not been released to the public
For the protection
of
these assholes,
the murderers. So, little James is dead, and the boys take his body and lay him across the train tracks, hoping that he's going to get hit by a train to hide the evidence. So,
that was February 12th, 1993. James's body wasn't found until 2 days later, on February 14th, 1993. So the train ran him over, cut him in half, and that was the boys. They were hoping that that's what was going to happen, and police would just assume that James got hit by a train and so on. Well, the pathologist did an autopsy on the body and said the train is not what killed James. And they were able to determine that James suffered from 42 blows, none of which could be determined as to being the fatal blow. So, I mean, you kick somebody, you hit somebody 42 times hard enough, one of them is going to eventually be deadly.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So originally the police thought that this was a sexually motivated crime because of the batteries potentially being in the rectum and then in the mouth. James's pants and underwear were removed, and like apparently the foreskin of his penis had been forcibly pulled back. I don't know. That's just disturbing in itself. And but the boys denied it being sexually motivated. Even to this day, they deny that it had anything to do with sex. Either way, it's fucked up.
Yeah.
So after the police and forensics team do collect all their evidence and everything, on February 20th, 1993, both John Venables and Robert Thompson were arrested. And originally it was concerning because when the media is talking about this case, nobody knows the actual age of the boys taking James from the mall, and so they just assume that it was teenagers, because you can't really tell from the video footage because it's so grainy. So they just assume that it would be teenagers, because who would think that 2 10-year-old boys would be evil enough to want to commit such a heinous crime? Excuse me. So, but they enhanced the surveillance, and a woman actually recognized one of the boys from the tape and said that this is John Venables. He was skipping school with Robert Thompson that day. And so they identified their suspects. So at that point, with all of like the DNA evidence that they had at the crime scene, the blue modeling paint was found on Thompson's shoes. James's blood was found on Thompson's shoes. And so they were able to link the boys to the crime scene. And, you know, that's just, once they find out that it's two 10-year-old boys, it's just, everybody is stunned.
So shocked.
Yeah. So what happened at that point was Thompson and Venables were being questioned whether by like psychiatrists to figure out whether they knew the difference between right and wrong, which I could have fucking told you that they knew the difference between right and wrong, because those assholes wouldn't have been taking a child from his mother and then lying to other adults about what they are doing with him. Oh, this is my brother. He's just upset. Oh, I'm taking him to the police station because he's lost. No, if you didn't know the difference between right and wrong, you would have said what you were doing with the boy. Okay, so got that rant out of the way. So when they're being questioned and talked to, Thompson was told that James's body had been taken to the hospital. And he asked, or he, like when he was told this, he just replied with, was he taken to the hospital so they could get him alive again? So it's kind of like, so Thompson didn't show any emotion during the investigation at all. Like he was like cold as ice, did not cry, didn't get upset, he just kept,
he was very defensive.
Yeah, he just kept, like when he would be asked a question, he would respond with a question. Like if the question was, did you all hit James in the head with a brick? He'd be like, what, did you see me there? Like it was very, very sociopathic replies. And that was one of the I guess solicitors or even like the psychiatrist said that Thompson was one of the scariest kids that he had ever seen, just because of how he reacted to everything. Thompson had said that Venables, so basically the boys turned on each other. They said, Thompson said Venables did it, Venables said Thompson did it. But then finally, once the truth came out, it was determined that Thompson was the ringleader with with the abduction. Now, as far as the killing goes, it's kind of hard to determine because a lot of the evidence points to Thompson. Like something that I forgot to mention to you was that there was a shoe impression on James's face that actually matched up with Thompson's shoe. So a lot of the forensic evidence points to him, but they both kind of admitted to playing a role. And if you can't determine after 42 blows what the fatal blow was, you can't really pinpoint who the exact murderer was. So, I mean, you have to kind of take that with a grain of salt, you know. So, like I said before, Thompson didn't become emotional at all during his interview or interrogation, whatever you want to call it. But Venables did. He got hysterical. He was really upset. You know, he was saying how sorry he was for the things that he did. And, you know, he just kind of wanted it all to go away. But you can't. I mean, you have to be held responsible. Even if you're 10 years old, you have to be held responsible for that. So one of the things that also happened was once they were willing to tell the truth about the crime and what happened to James, as soon as it was brought up about it being sexually motivated or there was molestation of any kind going on, both of the boys stopped the interviews completely. Yeah, they would not talk about it at all. And so that makes you question, was there something sexual about it? I mean, you don't just shove batteries up somebody's ass.
Yeah.
If there's not a sexual element to it, you know.
100% this was a sexual crime. In our opinions.
Yeah, in our opinions, that's what it is. And because we can't find a lot of information, like a lot of background on Venables or Thompson, it's hard to say what their history was because, you know, everybody knows that, you know, if you are molested or sexually assaulted as a child, it fucks you up and, you know, it can cause you to want to do harmful things to other people. So we don't know anything about Thompson or Venable's background, so we can't say that yes, they were sexually assaulted as children. We can just speculate that. And I'm pretty sure that both of them probably were. So then during the court case, or during the trial, the boys actually never like testified or never spoke. But they played the interview or the interrogation tapes in court and everything, and that was basically the prosecution's. Brittany's going to go into that a little bit later, but that was like the prosecution's case that they had built on. But there were tapes in there that were so disturbing and so distressing that they were never played for the court. And it makes you wonder what's on those tapes. What was said? What did those boys say on those tapes that they couldn't even play in a court case? Like, it just makes me sick to my stomach to even want to think about it.
I kind of feel like at the end, once they knew that they were already caught and in trouble, I feel like they probably admitted to everything, including the sexual abuse. But I think it was too graphic to be brought up in a trial that involved children. So they sealed those tapes. So, did we want to take a break now?
Yeah,
or
I think we need to.
I think we need to.
Okay, so we're going to talk to you guys about our favorite episodes of The Office, because like we said in our first video, The Office is like our favorite show, and we're complete nerds about it, and we can pretty much quote every episode.
Yeah.
So, you want to start with your top 3?
Okay. So my top 3 episodes, and a lot of people might not agree with this.
A lot of people also don't watch The Office or agree that The Office is the greatest show in the world.
We can't be friends.
We can't.
If you don't watch The Office, or if you hate The Office, then
we don't even know. We just can't even.
I feel sad for you. I feel sad for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because like I like to watch The Office like at night, because my husband is deployed right now, and I was actually even doing this before he was deployed, but I just like to watch it at night and kind of fall asleep to it because it makes me feel good. Like, it just makes me feel happy. So
same.
Yeah, I just love it so much.
I watch it almost every night to go to sleep, because I've seen every episode like 50 times that I could just listen to it.
I know.
And know exactly what is going on.
The expressions on the face, the clothes that they're wearing, the room that they're in.
What's going on in the background? Like, is Kevin picking his fucking nose in the background or something?
Eating candy
out of an M&M jar. Anyway, so I watch it every night before I go to sleep because it shuts my brain down from all the crap that is just circling in there all day long, and it helps me relax. And it does something for my soul, you guys. It does something for my soul, okay?
Oh gosh, excuse me. I don't have the coronavirus. I'm sorry.
So my favorite episode, my number 1, and a lot of people are not going to agree with this, but I don't care, is the pilot episode.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people cannot even watch the first season because they think
like
it's
somebody
crap.
we work with.
But they think it's crap. And you know what? Y'all aren't true Office fans. If you don't like the first episode, then you are not a true Office fan. And you cannot come at me with this because it's one of the best episodes. Yes. It's where you learn the dynamics between the characters, like who's going to have
a relationship.
Yes, who's going to have relationships. It brings you the relationship between Jim and Dwight with the pranking. The fucking Jell-O mold, you guys, is one of the most iconic things on that show. I will be getting that tattooed on my body one of these days. It's happening. The stapler and the Jell-O is going on my body somewhere. So the pilot episode, number 1 favorite episode.
Yep.
Do you want me to go through my other episodes, or you want to do an episode?
I would have to say that the pilot episode is one of my favorites. It is not my number 1, but it's definitely in my top 3 just because it is Brittany's exactly right. She nailed it on the head. It's the episode where you learn the dynamics of everybody. You know, you learn that Jim and Pam have a thing going on, even though she's engaged to somebody else, and that Michael is this narcissistic nut that has to have everybody like him.
Yeah.
And you know, it's just a great episode. My number one episode is I believe it's season 5. And it's the stress relief part 1. And it's the one where Dwight sets the office on fire because nobody was listening to his safety presentation. So he decided to make it an actual live thing. And so he set the office on fire and everybody's panicking. And so Michael and Dwight go to corporate, and David Wallace is like, what were you thinking?
Yeah.
We're taking away you as being the safety guy. And so Dwight is super upset about that. And then so basically the next scene, Stanley had a heart attack. Like that was the most important part in there, is that Stanley had a heart attack.
Fire caused Stanley to have a fucking heart attack, almost killed him.
Yeah, could have killed him. So instead of firing Dwight, they just take away him being the safety guy. So then they have like this CPR woman come in who is trying to teach these individuals who each one of them is so eccentric that, you know, it's impossible to teach them anything.
Yeah.
And so Michael gets down and does his CPR, but he's doing it too fast. And then whatever. It goes on for a really long time. But the best part is when Dwight cuts the face off the CPR dummy, puts it on, and he just goes. He makes the Hannibal Lecter noise, and he goes, "Hello, Clarice." It is the funniest fucking part ever. And
Classic.
I think every time I watch it, like tears come to my eyes because I laugh so much at that part.
That's one thing I really like about this show is no matter how many times you watch it,
It's still
it's
so funny.
every fucking time.
Yes.
Every time.
Absolutely. All right.
So my second favorite episode is the Goodbye Toby episode. Other than the relationship between Jim and Dwight, the relationship between Michael and Toby kills me. It fucking kills me. Every time they have an interaction, I feel like I'm gonna piss my pants because they make me laugh so much. Everybody knows a fucking Toby Flenderson, okay? Everybody. And if you don't know a Toby Flenderson, that's because you are the fucking Toby Flenderson.
Yeah, that's true. So 100%.
This relationship between Michael and Toby, they can't, well, I don't want to say they can't stand each other because I don't think Toby has a problem with Michael other than the fact that Michael is always picking on him and bullying him.
Well, and the fact that Michael is like the worst manager in the entire world.
He is the worst manager ever.
Yeah.
But he's also the best manager ever.
Yes, he is.
So in the Goodbye Toby episode, Toby actually leaves. He's going to go to Costa Rica. And Michael creates this giant fucking going away party for him.
Ferris wheel.
A carnival.
Fireworks.
There was a carnival
It was
outside.
a carnival. A band. It was actually Daryl's band.
It was Daryl's band. So Michael gets on the stage and starts singing a song to Toby to send him off. And that is my second favorite episode.
You gotta sing the song.
Oh. Goodbye, Toby. Goodbye, Toby. Goodbye, Toby.
Toby!
Toby is going away. See ya. See ya. He's out of here. Okay, so that's my second favorite episode. With a side note on that episode, when Toby comes back from Costa Rica,
Yeah.
he had been back to the office for
a week.
A week. He had been there for a week in the annex, which if you don't watch The Office, you're not going to know what I'm talking about when I say the annex, but the annex is, if you go to the back of the office and go through the double glass doors, there's another office back there, which is where Toby is at. And it's also where Kelly is at. Kelly's another really funny character.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say all these characters' names.
You have to just watch
the show. You guys have to fucking watch it.
Just give it a chance.
Okay.
Like, yeah, I think we're getting a little heated about The Office.
We are. Okay, so when Michael is told Toby's been back. He doesn't believe them. He's like, yeah, okay, you guys are joking with me, whatever. So he walks back to the annex, and Toby's not there. So he's like, all right.
Good one, guys.
Good one, guys. You got me. And then Toby shows up.
Here's the coronavirus.
I also do not have the coronavirus, you guys.
Is it too soon to joke about that? I think so.
Yeah.
Sorry. We'll cut this out.
All right. So Toby shows up, and Michael loses his shit. He loses his shit. He's like, no! Oh, God, no!
It was so funny.
It's one of the best moments of the show. And that's my second favorite episode.
Okay. My next favorite episode. This is why I needed to write. Oh, is the injury. The injury is so funny. So in this episode, Michael, who exaggerates on everything because he basically wants to get attention for everything. And so it just opens with Pam answering the phone, and it's Michael yelling into the phone, and he's like, hey, come pick me up. And she's like, Michael, what's wrong? And he's like, I burned my foot. And so Jim puts Michael on speakerphone so everybody can hear him. And so basically he explains he burns his foot on his George Foreman grill because he likes to wake up to the smell of crackling bacon. And since he doesn't have a maid or a butler, he has to wake up, put the bacon, plug the George Foreman in, and then he goes back to sleep, and then 15 minutes later, he wakes up to the sound of crackling bacon. And so he rolls over, and the thing clamps down on his foot. He burns his foot. Not the end of the world to a normal person, but to Michael Scott it is. So nobody wanted to go pick him up because it's Michael. So Dwight volunteers to go pick him up. Meanwhile, as Dwight is speeding out of the parking lot, he crashes into a telephone pole, gets a concussion, vomits all over the back of his car, and then proceeds to drive off to get Michael.
Yeah.
So, and then basically just the whole episode is Michael being a huge baby about his burning foot. Meanwhile, Dwight has a serious concussion that could possibly kill him. And Jim has to take him and Michael to the doctor, to the hospital. And Michael asks what's more serious, a foot injury or a head injury.
The doctor looks at him like he is on drugs. A head injury is more serious.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's so great. I love that show.
All right, so that's the second favorite episode. We're going to do one more episode. My third favorite episode is Dwight's Christmas, which is also Pennsylvania Dutch Christmas. With Dwight, this is towards the end of the series, and Dwight is getting more responsibility at work. He's taking over more of a management role, and everybody decides that they're going to let him have his Christmas. Well, he dresses up as his Santa character, Belschnickel, which looks like a giant troll. It doesn't look like Santa Claus. He's dressed in this brown Santa Claus suit with his big old beard on, carrying a stick. He looks dirty. He's carrying a bag. He's got dirt all rubbed all over his face. And he just walks around, and they do his Pennsylvania Dutch traditions, which the food looked gross. A ham loaf. Like, gross. Then one of their traditions is you break the bone, and whoever it's good luck, just like the wishbone thing, but it's like a jawbone. Is that what it is?
I don't remember what it is.
I don't remember kind of what bone it is. But it's some gross looking bone with jelly all over it.
It is gross.
And it looks disgusting. So then they're in the conference room, and Dwight's walking around in this Belschnickel costume. And he's walking up to everybody individually and asking them, have you been impish or admirable? And if you've been admirable, you get a gift, which is not a very good gift. It's one of Dwight's gifts.
Which is just ridiculous.
You're probably going to get beets. Because he has a beet farm, so you'll probably get beets. And if you're admirable, he smacks your hand with that stick that he carries around. It's a great episode.
It's a wonderful episode.
It's great.
Yeah.
All right, so that's my third favorite episode.
And then my third favorite was the pilot. So, yeah, and we've covered that.
All right, so we're gonna
dive back into this. Ready?
Yep.
All right. Are you guys ready? Hope so.
Okay, so we're getting back to the trial. November 24th, 1993 is when both of the boys were found guilty. There were over 100 protesters outside of the courtroom. This case got so much media attention because of how old the boys were, how brutal the crime was, that it caused the UK to go crazy. There was riots in the streets. People were sending death threats. There were other suspects that had to actually leave the country because they were being threatened and stalked, and they didn't even have anything to do with it, but their lives were in danger because of how much attention this case was getting. Both of the boys, John and Robert, were tried in an adult courtroom because of the brutality of the crime. Even though they were 10 years old, the UK government decided that this needs to be tried in an adult court case because of how heinous this crime was. The boys were so small that they had to pretty much be sat in booster seats in the courtroom so they could see over the tables that they were sitting in front of. And they were also kept separate from their parents.
I'm sorry, I'm not laughing at the video. My cat is just
pretzels over here.
She's just meowing. So
now,
if you hear that, that's her.
So the boys their names were hidden up to this point. They were identified as Child A and Child B in the courtroom. Like Ashley said earlier, they were not put on the stand whatsoever. All the evidence against them was strictly from the 20 hours of interview footage from the initial investigation. There was also, the box of evidence had 27 stones in it, 27 bricks and stones. It also had... Okay, so there was, in the evidence box, contained 27 bricks, a large bloody stone. It also contained little James's underwear and the rusty iron bar that they used to beat him with. It was determined in the court case, in court, that both of the boys understood right from wrong. And the trial judge actually tried to blame this crime on violent video games and movies, which was kind of a thing in this period in the UK,
90s.
in the 90s.
Yeah.
There was an outcry from the public because of the violence in video games and movies. People were saying it was causing issues like this. It was causing children to murder and be violent and just be mischievous. It was said that the boys got the idea from the Child's Play 3 movie that came out, but none of this was ever confirmed. It was just speculation in the courtroom. So the families of the boys, at this point of their life, they had been living in chaos. So Thompson, his father actually had ran out on him and his mother 4 years prior to this murder, and his mother drank very heavily. Now, John also came from an unstable home. He was a very mischievous child at school. He would run down the halls and pull artwork down off the wall. He would put paper all over his face like a mask. He would cut holes and gashes in his clothes and his socks, and he was just destructive. He also drew a picture in class that depicted somebody being murdered, and this happened a month before James was killed. Now, the site of the murder became a memorial for James. Like I said earlier, the public was really outraged and shocked by this crime. They were torn because of how old the boys were, but also on the other hand, this was a brutal murder. Not just you hit this kid over the head and he just died by accident. No, they beat him until he died.
It's so sad.
It is extremely sad.
I can't even imagine what the parents of James went through.
So the public was so upset by this that it caused vigilantes. The parents of both boys had to be moved to different sides of the country under witness protection. Everything about this case was kept secret from the public because of how dangerous it was for the people involved, because of vigilantes and death threats, and it was chaos in the streets for a long time about this case. PTSD from their child psychiatrist. Now, this is in the investigation and in the trial. The boys' names had not been released to the public. Like I said, they were child A and child B. The trial judge at sentencing had said that they had committed a crime of unparalleled evil and barbarity. And because of that, both of their names were released to the public.
And they should have been. Like, I mean, just the fact that at that point, like, their names were released to the public. But after the trial, like, so there's a lot of different stuff that happens with their sentencing, like a lot of things, and it gets kind of confusing because laws were changed and this and that, and so basically they were sentenced to 8 years in prison. 8 years, not long enough for me, but so there were a lot of different things, like the location of their incarcerations varied, and it changed a lot, so nobody really knew where they were. And nobody actually knew where they were kept until after their release, because like the government, I guess, was so worried about vigilantes that they didn't want anything to happen to these boys. Both of the boys had regular visits from their family members. You know, they were they received an education while they were in prison. You know, and they just continued like their normal lives, but they were just in prison. And so Thompson, it's actually said that Thompson was like the model prisoner. Like, he was good, he listened, he, you know, did what he was supposed to do. Venables was not. He was the mischievous one. He was the one that was getting into trouble. So take it for whatever it's worth. I mean, both of them were involved with this crime, and so you just don't know which one. I mean, they're both psychopaths, but which one was more of a psychopath, you know? So I think Thompson was smart. I
also think he was extremely intelligent, and he knew after he was caught for this murder, he was like, well, I'm not changing, but I know exactly what I have to do to stay out of trouble.
Yeah, and he did. And he got out, and nobody knows anything about him now.
Nobody's heard anything about him since his release.
Nothing. There's nothing about him. Nobody knows what his new identity is. I thought maybe I read an article about they were being deported to Canada or something, but I'm not 100% sure on that. So nobody knows what happened to Robert Thompson. Venables, on the other hand, that's another story, and I'll get into that here in a minute. So in July of 1994, the Home Secretary, Michael Howard, announces that the boys need to serve a minimum of 15 years, and they shouldn't be released until February of 2008. But because everything has to deal with politics, they're like, no, that's not okay. You're just doing that because you want the votes. And so that actually gets overturned in 1997 by a lord, and I'm not sure what his name was. I'm sorry, I forgot about that. And so they took it back down to the minimum sentence of 8 years. So then in March of 1999, So then in March of 1999, the case was actually criticized by the European Court of Human Rights, saying that the trial was unfair and that the boys should not have been tried as adults.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know. I should keep that part to myself. So, so it was basically ruled that the boys' rights were violated, saying that they were too young to understand why they were being tried like adults. Whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2001, Thompson and Venables go for a parole review, and guess what? They get out.
Yep.
They're given names, new names, and there are terms to their parole. Like, they cannot breach any of this in their contract at all, and they weren't allowed to contact the Bulgers at all. They were not allowed to visit Merseyside, which is where all of this took place, and they had curfews that they had to follow. And then so there's a court order on their new identities, and nobody knows what they are. And there were several issues where people were like, oh, I know who John Venables is, and like they posted it on social media and stuff like that. It's actually a criminal offense if you try to find out who they are, which is fucking ridiculous to me. I just can't. Oh, it's so frustrating. And it's just fucked up to me that we can't even know who they are to this day. Like, even like, but whatever. So fast forwarding to 2010, Venables gets put back in prison. Guess for what? Possession of child pornography.
And not just regular child pornography. I mean, none of it's regular, but extreme torture child pornography. With children as young as 2.
Being raped. So, he gets put in jail. And he is then... so, that happened, like, in, like, March or April of 2010. And then in June of 2010, June or July of 2010, he gets more charges against him for more possession of child pornography. So he actually gets sentenced to prison for about 3 years. 3 years. So...
And he had over 100 images on his computer. Over 100. So this dude gets sentenced to 3 years in prison, gets out. And then in November of 2018, guess what? He gets arrested again for possession of child pornography. So that's another huge issue that I have. Okay, this guy, clearly something is fucked up with him. Yeah.
Clearly something happened to him when he was a child. I understand that. But they just keep re-releasing him into society. How many times? We don't even know. Because we don't know his new identity, nobody knows, like, how many times this guy has hurt another child. If he hasn't hurt one yet, he's going to.
Both of them will hurt another child again.
So when Venables gets out in, I think it's 2021, because I think he only got a 3-year sentence, who knows what the fuck is going to happen then? You know? I mean, because this guy obviously is a douchebag and is into kiddie porn, and he needs to go to prison for the rest of his life. Period. He already took the life of one child that we know of. He very well could be taking the lives of other children. We just don't know about it yet. Because they're trying to protect him, and they're trying to keep him... They're just trying to keep everything a fucking secret. And it's irritating. It's so annoying.
I mean, it's law. They have to because of the age that they were.
What they were, but not now.
Yes.
So, apparently, with the identities having to be kept secret and everything, the government has spent over $1 million on having to change John Venables' identity, because it actually, I think he had to change it like 4 times. Yeah. And so, because each time he would brag about who he was.
Yeah.
He would tell people, I'm John Venables. I'm the one, I killed James Bulger. Like, it almost was like he was proud of the fact that he did that, you know, that it was something that he was famous for. I don't know. I'm just speculating here.
I feel like a lot of this case is speculation.
Yeah.
Because everything was kept secret.
Yeah, absolutely. But the fact that the government would spend $1 million.
Over $1 million.
Over $1 million.
$1.2 million. Actually, $1,227.04 to be exact. To be exact.
To be exact. Well, it's way too much money I would spend on an individual.
Way
like
too
that.
much money.
I think burn in hell. So, that's the end of our story.
So, sorry guys if this was a really dark case. We are going to try to maybe not do a child murder for a while.
Yeah, I need a break from them.
I definitely also feel like I need a break from this. So,
sorry. Yeah, guys, and I've been super distracted this week too. Like, so I'm sorry if I just kind of went off in left field about a couple things. Just things have been a little stressful around.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked us, hit the subscribe button. If not, don't watch again. We don't really care. We're just here to do this for fun and to entertain ourselves, basically, and also to eat fucking food because we like to eat food and talk about murder.
Yep.
So, thank you again for watching. So this has been the Murder Mukbang Show. You kill 'em.
we grill them.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.